don't go get one of those special attorneys, that used to work for the disability to try to fight your case, you definitely aren't going to get it. But the point I'm trying to make is, why not have some of those factors along, those lines in how it's decided to get that than to get this certificate? Why, these doctors are going to have to be really careful about who they sign off on to get this medical certificate.
Or it's going to be a black market.
Exactly.
It's going to be, me pretending to be sick and coming up with some ailment. Oh, my back. Oh,
right.
My God, no, I can't stand up and, getting my certificate.
Right, exactly. And is this, was this something over a long period of time? Well, I mean, with the advancement of medicine, they can determine, if this is something that a medicinal marijuana is going to cure or aid or not.
Okay. Wow. Well, I thought it was a vital topic because, again, the way Chicago is dealing with it, anything under 30 grams of marijuana, really, you're looking at possibly some prison time, but primarily what's happening is people are getting fined. Mm-hmm. And so there's a laxed attitude about even having it. I'm sure that little businesses, I think of places like Dollar Tree, Walmart, those kind of places where you get really just more sort of, less professional people, just sort of job-oriented folks who are going to walk in smelling like cannabis or feel like they can go on break and do that, and it's going to actually put them up for the chopping block. Or, like from the other interview, they won't make it past human resources interview, like they won't make it through in the front door. What do you suggest that people do if they legitimately have a need for it? Like if you really actually want to be a part of the workforce, you have been injured and this happens, what do you suggest they do?
Because this is so new, I probably need to, even though I'm not in the industry anymore, I probably need to become well versed and kind of like maybe do my own study to see what the pulse is in manufacturing and distribution. But I would imagine what they should do is maybe if those are industries that this person knows and has done all their life, maybe they won't be chosen to work on equipment, but maybe they can do some other things, in those industries that didn't involve equipment. I would imagine
to speak up and speak to your
absolutely.
Should you speak to your certificate as well? Your illness.
Well, they're going to have to because they're going to be drug tests.
Right.
They're going to have to pass a drug test. And whether if they're whether if they have a certificate or not, they're going to have to take a drug test, which of course is going to come back. It's going to come back positive for marijuana, and in the normal world, without this being the factor, I know all the companies I've worked at, that's an automatic no. N-O. I'm sorry, we won't be to continue employment. Your drug test came up positive for marijuana. And that is not something we will tolerate. So companies have to now figure out what they can tolerate with it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for this interview. I hope the listeners are learning that, they put these laws in place, but they do not actually work out all of the details. And that, in fact, from talking with you, LaSalle, the devil is most certainly in these details, that not only will it cost you employment, should you be seeking employment, it has potential to completely bar you. But if you have an interest in still trying to work because you have great faith that you can explain around it, then you definitely need to do that at the front gate.
Right, and companies are just going to have to decide. So companies now are just going to have to go back to their table and decide how they're going to deal with this issue.
But they have a right to say no.
They do have a right. They have a right to say no. Any of the states that are at will has a right to say, just no. Our policy says we don't tolerate drugs, and just, no.
Okay, and so what that means, listeners, is no, you cannot sue. It's just, you cannot. You're not going to get any place with that.
Well, no, you're right. And the only way, and that's why the at-will conversation is usually tricky, because on one end, what it means is, and I explain this to my students in the classes that I teach, on one end, what it means is I have the right, me, the associate or employee, I have the right to terminate the working relationship anytime I want. On the other hand, the employer has the right to terminate the working relationship with no cause at any time that they want. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the caveat to that. They do. Each party has the right to do it. But what happens is when you go and file unemployment, then unemployment says, well, why did you terminate this person? Then that's where unemployment will say, well, you really didn't have grounds to terminate the person. That's where the at-will thing kind of gets thrown out the window.
Okay.
Because if the associate comes back and says, well, I don't understand why I was terminated. They never told me why I was terminated. I showed up to work, and I was told I needed to, vacate the premises and not given a reason why. So then if unemployment says, okay, well, what reason did you have for terminating this person? If the employer says, well, he was late all the time. So unemployment will say, okay, well, the associate didn't know that. You didn't explain that to the associate. You have no paper trail. So that's why I say the at-will thing is kind of an oxymoron. So what it does is it gives I call it temporary relief. It gives the employee or temporary power. It gives the employer temporary power to do something, but then on the back end, if unemployment gets involved and see that it wasn't done correctly, then unemployment will make you pay. So
wow.
So it's just, a funny thing like that. Now, there are some states, and I believe I think Minnesota might be one of them. Minnesota is not an at-will state, so they have to be careful about how they terminate employees because they can be sued.
Okay.
But you can sue even in an an at-will state. That's what the EEOC is for. You may, in certain instances, you may not have a case, but you can definitely, attempt to sue, and they'll let you know whether you have grounds or not.
Okay. Well, is it at your cost or theirs?
It's usually free to start the suit, and then what'll happen is if they tell you have grounds, then of course they'll come up with basically what the person wants is some money. They want back pay or something like that. So there's usually no cost involved.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Now you've given our listeners a tidbit. Should they be in that struggle? Again, I want to thank you, LaSalle Crosby, for sitting down for this interview. Great insight into what medicinal marijuana means for the workplace and also for the employer as well as the potential employee. I look forward to talking with you again in the future. We're listening to Beyond the Surface Radio with your host, Dr. Wanda J. Evans-Brewer. And until we speak again, be safe in God's grace.
Thank you.
You're welcome.